Well, today we're going to make a holiday cookie. Since Christmas is right around the corner and everybody's probably getting ready for, the holidays and getting out all of those Christmas recipes. And it's kind of interesting because I find myself making lots of different bars and cookies and desserts throughout the year, but there's always just those certain 15 recipes or so that I make just at Christmas time. So this is an old recipe that I actually got from one of the teachers when we lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which would have been about 22 years ago. 24 years ago we moved to Marshfield. So this would have been in the 1980s when I was working part-time at our kids' school in Cedar Rapids. So they're called almond bark Rice Krispie cookies. So we're going to start out with 2 pounds of almond bark. Now this I bought, and most of it comes in 1.5 pounds, and this was all one piece. So I took a very sharp meat knife and chopped these up. So you can just chop them and then put them in a large bowl. And then I also had some that come in a tray, and then these just pop out like this. So I actually have a little bit less than 2 pounds, but that will work just fine for our purposes. Okay, so we have almost 2 pounds of almond bark in my large Longaberger bowl, and we're going to heat it on high. And we'll start it for 2 minutes, and you just want to melt it until you can stir it a couple of times and then just melt it until all of the almond bark has melted. So while I'm waiting to do this, I'll just give you a little bit of update on Matthew and Alana. They loved the last cooking show when we made the corn fritters, and I thought Brianna did a really awesome job by interjecting pictures of them from Bali and the Philippines and different places that they've been. So they left Bali and went to Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, and spent about a week there. And they said it was kind of interesting because they were actually in this DoubleTree hotel, and they said it was kind of more like American living again, where they were used to if you're in a hotel. So they were actually kind of relieved for a little while that they were just back to those accommodations, even though they loved all of the open air and the various places that they have visited so far. And then they left Bangkok and then went to Myanmar, which was formerly known as Burma, and they spent a few days there. And then last Sunday, a week ago, Matthew just emailed a picture of them. They had taken a bus to go to their next spot in Myanmar. And it was kind of interesting because he said Alana looks happier than what she really was. And when we enlarged the picture, the bus looked like it could be more of like a cattle truck, where she might have been sitting on a bed of straw or something. So I'm not really sure. The internet isn't as good where they're at right now, so we haven't been able to FaceTime them. But we'll be interested, in seeing what happens and what exactly they're going to do. It's a little bit more rustic, obviously, than when they were in this DoubleTree hotel. And then on the 17th of December, then they're leaving to go back to Thailand, where they're going to be spending Christmas this year. Okay, well, let's check this. Once it still is far from melting yet. Once it really gets melting, it goes fairly quickly. So this may take a total of 4 to 5 minutes, perhaps. I'll just put it on for another 2 minutes. So we'll be interested just to find out. I'm hoping that they're going to send me some recipes from Thailand, so I can maybe include some Thai food. They were actually in Thailand for Thanksgiving, so they had Thai noodles and different things. So it was much different than our homemade, turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy and all the things that we enjoyed for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure about cookies and things like that. They'll have to tell me what they have discovered at these new places. Previously, in the first couple of months of their travels, desserts, sweet things just really aren't like what we're used to in the United States, which is probably not a bad thing. We probably all have too much sugar in our diets, even though everything seems to taste, really good and you like something, but they tend to have more of their dessert might be with fruit and add some you know, maybe brown sugar or some kind of cane sugar. And but otherwise, even like one night when they were at dinner in the Philippines, I believe, they were going to have some dessert, and they ended up giving them some apples and oranges. So that's more of what they've been accustomed to, is more fruit for desserts and not really the sweet things that we've had. Okay, so now this is another 1 minute and about 15 seconds. So I'm going to put it in for another 15 or another 30 seconds maybe, and it's going to be ready and all melted. Okay, there. Okay. Yeah, Matthew definitely misses some of the sweet things that he grew up with, some of our family traditions at, well, of course, at Thanksgiving time, the pumpkin pie. What Alana especially likes is my pumpkin cheesecake now, which is a big hit. But the cowboy cookies, some of the other cookies. Matthew is not a big fudge eater, so he doesn't really care about the chocolate fudge, but it's the Mexican wedding cakes that we make, and some of the other peanut butter cookies with the Reese's peanut butter cup inside. Those are some of his favorites. So my bowl tends to get very hot, so you want to be careful that you don't burn yourself. Okay, and it is all melted, as you can see. So after you have your almond bark melted, then we're going to add 1 cup of peanut butter. And I typically will use like Jif or Skippy. I have found that in some of my Christmas baking, I've actually ruined these chocolate or peanut butter Rice Krispie balls that you dip in chocolate. They're one of my kids' very favorite holiday cookie, which I don't make very often. It's very labor intensive. And I used just a generic brand one time, and it was a big mistake. It just really ruined the cookies. The taste was not good. So I recommend more of the like Jif or Skippy whenever I do any of my Christmas baking. So you just mix in and it's plain peanut butter. If you didn't have plain, because we're going to be adding peanuts anyway, you could add crunchy. But I just add the 1 cup of plain peanut butter. And then after that's all stirred in, we're going to have 2 cups of peanuts, 3 cups of miniature marshmallows, and 3 cups of Rice Krispies. And on the Rice Krispies and marshmallows, and really the peanuts as well, I don't necessarily use the more expensive brand. Whatever generic works fine. It's not a problem. And then we're going to mix this in until it's all mixed up. And you can kind of tell when you're mixing, it gets a little bit dry, so then just kind of make sure that you get the bottom part mixed in there, as you'll have some of your almond bark mixture on the bottom. Okay, so when it looks like just like that, we are ready to start putting them on cookie sheets. Okay, let me get this out of the way. Okay, and I just use, you know, my jelly roll pans, which I use for cookies, and I tend to put a piece of wax paper on them because they come out a little bit easier. And you can really make these as large or as small as you wish. This is going to make probably 6 to 8 dozen if you make them about this size. And I like to kind of mound it up a little bit if you can. If you want to make them larger, you know, that's fine, but they tend to be a little bit rich, so just making them this size, I think. I like to put them in a really cold place, either in your refrigerator, or if you have, like a sun porch or screen-in porch where it's cold. Right now, this kind of weather is good for it. When it gets warmer, then you end up having a bit of a problem if you want to use a porch for an additional refrigerator. Growing up on a farm, I remember my mother would be so upset a few years when it was really warm at Christmas time. And I mean, grew up in southern Wisconsin, and there were times when, like Christmas week, we had 60-some degrees, and that was not good when you're trying to use that back porch for an additional refrigerator. And with a large family like I came from, my mother had to make a lot of food for that big Christmas meal or Thanksgiving time as well. I try to get the marshmallows kind of evenly on there. Maybe you might have 2 to 3 marshmallows, and that is basically what I do. And like I said, you might get 6 to 8 dozen out of this batch, and then when you're done, I use a variety of containers for our family, and we don't tend to buy the 4 or 5 quart ice cream anymore since the kids are all gone, but they make wonderful containers when you want to store any of your baked goods. And this is how they turn out. And these are kind of small, but they're kind of bite-sized, and it's just a nice size. I will also have, like I said, I probably make about 10 to 15 different kinds of cookies at Christmas time, a variety of spritz, the pecan wedding cakes, chocolate that you top with Hershey's Kisses, and chocolate chip nut balls, fudge. So having them not too large makes them kind of nice. And I now have my Christmas dishes out, so it's kind of fun to be getting ready for the holidays and adding some Christmas greens in there and so forth. So that's one of the many cookies that I'll be making at Christmas time. So I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Cooking with Ruth. So until next time, happy cooking.